Hey everyone, and welcome back. We all love to dream about amazing trips, right? Exploring new places, meeting different people, making incredible memories. But sometimes, when you're far from home, things can take a really unexpected and even scary turn. Today, I'm going to share 3 true stories that show you just how quickly a dream vacation can become a nightmare. These are real travel horror stories that still give me chills. So, my first story takes us back a few years, maybe 2013 or 2014, I don't remember the exact date because honestly, it's a bit of a blur I've tried to forget. I was in college, and my family lived all the way in Bulgaria. It was Christmas break, and my plan was to surprise them. But before that, let's talk about a trip I took alone. My friends are often super busy or can't afford to jet off all the time, so I've gotten used to solo adventures. My first time flying alone, I went to San Diego. I'd been to most of the big cities in California, but San Diego was still on my list. So, I checked into a pretty good hotel right near downtown. As I was checking in, I met a guy in the lobby. He was a bit older than me, and he started chatting, asking where I was from, how long I'd be staying, and if I'd been to San Diego before. Turns out, he was also traveling solo and it was his second time there. He was really polite and even offered to help me with my bag since he was heading upstairs anyway. I thought, how nice, and thanked him. He carried my bags to the elevator, we went up to my second-floor room. He set them down outside my door, said it was great meeting me, and wished me a good stay. I thanked him again, and he walked off down the hall. I went into my room, dropped my bags, and decided to grab a quick nap. Feeling refreshed, I headed back down to the lobby, about to step outside, when the lady at the front desk called me over. She asked me what that man did when we went upstairs. I just told her he helped me with my bags. Then, her face got serious. She warned me that he'd been hanging around outside the hotel for a while and had come in right after me. She was pretty sure he wasn't even staying at the hotel and told me to stay away from him if I saw him again. This, of course, was super unsettling. I hoped she was wrong, and he was just a genuinely nice person, but I went out, explored, and had a great day. A few hours later, I came back to change for dinner. There was a different person at the front desk now. I quickly showered, changed, and lay down for another power nap. That's when I heard a knock at my door, followed by a quiet male voice saying, "Housekeeping." Now, I hadn't ordered housekeeping, and it was my first day there. Maybe they had the wrong room. I went to the peephole, but I didn't see anyone in the hall. That was beyond strange. Immediately, the man from earlier popped into my head. What if it was him? I ignored the knocks and grabbed my phone to call the front desk. I asked them if they'd sent housekeeping to my room, and of course, they said no. So, I asked them to send someone up for my safety. 5 minutes later, a hotel maid knocked. I opened the door, politely explained the situation, and thanked her for coming. Then, I left for dinner. After dinner, I went on a city lights tour and explored some of the lively night spots. I got back to the hotel around 10 p.m. I went to the front desk worker and explained everything that had happened with the man, how I feared he might have been pretending to be room service to get into my room. I asked her if she'd seen anyone matching his description in the lobby. She said no, and to make me feel better, she even checked the live surveillance camera of my floor. No one was in the halls. I thanked her and went up to my room. I changed out of my clothes, lay in bed, and put on the TV, hoping to drift off to sleep. Within an hour, I was half asleep, and the sounds from the TV were blending into my dreams. So, when I heard my door quietly close, it just became part of the dream. I didn't truly wake up until I felt the mattress shift, as if someone was putting weight on the other side. I looked over my shoulder, and there he was. A man in a black covered mask and a baseball hat, getting onto the bed, reaching for me. He grabbed me, trying to cover my mouth so I couldn't scream, but I fought him off just long enough to let out a blood-curdling scream. He kept trying to cover my mouth, but I struggled and resisted. Just then, someone started knocking at the door. I screamed, "Help!" By this point, the man clearly knew his plan was falling apart. He let go of me, opened the door, shoved the woman who was knocking to the floor, and ran down the hall to the stairs. The woman came in to make sure I was okay. I was in complete shock, and then the tears came. Others from neighboring rooms came to see what the commotion was about, hotel staff arrived, and the police were called. Based on the hotel video footage, the man somehow got a master key, which let him into my room. The mask and hat hid his face, but I strongly believe it was the same man who helped me with my bags on the first day. I think he wanted to find out my room number so he could come back later. It's terrifying to think he might have done this successfully to someone else. I tried my best to enjoy the rest of my trip, even though I'd gone through something that will likely stay with me forever. The hotel gave me a full refund for my entire stay and a different room. Honestly, looking back, I probably should have pressed charges against the hotel. The hotel, of course, gave all the necessary footage to the police, but I've never been contacted to identify anyone, which sadly means the man was probably never caught or identified. My next story takes us back to a different Christmas break. I was a freshman in college in New York City, thousands of miles from my family in Bulgaria, a small country in Eastern Europe, near Romania and Greece. While Bulgaria isn't exactly known for being the safest place, this story actually happened far from there. I was at JFK Airport just a few days before Christmas Eve, planning to surprise my family. As you can imagine, the airport was absolutely packed, making travel even more stressful. After what felt like endless security lines, luggage weighing, and waiting, I finally settled onto the first plane to Istanbul from New York. It was an 8-hour flight, so I was bracing myself for a bit of a miserable, sore ride in economy class. I ended up sitting between two men. Now, I'm a pretty small person, about 5 feet tall and just over 100 pounds, which didn't make this situation any better. These two men were at least a foot taller than me and could easily overpower me. The man on my right was pretty quiet, black hair, glasses, and subtly muscular. The guy on my left, though, really freaked me out. He would occasionally mumble quietly to himself and pick at his skin, sometimes even nudging his arm close to mine. I noticed him and tried my best to just get through the 8-hour flight. The only thing keeping me going was the thought of being back in my home country in less than 48 hours. But this focus quickly disappeared. I'd be minding my own business, maybe doing some work or listening to music, and the guy to my left would be staring at me, very directly. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe he had a disability that made him lack social cues, but as time went on, I started to doubt that. At some point during the flight, I was watching season 2 of American Horror Story. The man suddenly started speaking to me, asking why I was watching a show that poorly represents the mentally ill, murderers, and whatnot. Very nervously, I quickly asked him if he needed anything, since it's pretty rude to just randomly bother a stranger minding their own business. The season of American Horror Story I was watching was Asylum, which is all about cold-blooded murderers and insane people in a mental hospital. The guy looked me straight in the eye and said very calmly, "I just think it's funny how everyone thinks people who skin others alive are crazy. I mean, aren't we all like that?" My mind started racing. Who was I sitting next to? Did anyone else hear that? I chuckled, trying to play it cool and seem unfazed. For the rest of the flight, I was scared out of my mind. I even thought about asking if there was an open seat at the back of the plane. But thankfully, the flight ended, and we arrived in Istanbul. I grabbed my stuff as fast as I could and hurried off the plane. I wish I could say the story ends there, but unfortunately, it doesn't. The rest of my Christmas was fine, but what that man said kept replaying in my head. As January approached, I started packing up again to head back to New York. I was sorting through my tote bag, throwing out any old trash from traveling, when I found a disgusting note that must have been slipped in there while I was sleeping. It read, "I wish I could see what you look like under your skin." I really wish I had taken a picture of it as evidence because only a month later, in February, my younger sister sent me a news article. It was about the exact same man from my plane ride, who had been sent to jail in Istanbul for multiple counts of rape, attempted rape, kidnapping, attempted kidnapping, and first-degree murder. Reading that article made me sick to my stomach, and honestly, that whole experience made me just want to stay home for the holidays for a few years after that. For our third and final story, let's fast forward to the winter of 2018. My girlfriend, Claire, and I took a week off from work to escape the cold and head to a beautiful beach resort in Mexico. The water was crystal blue, the weather was perfect, and the resort was incredibly affordable for a 7-day all-inclusive package. It had everything, a buffet, 3 pools, it was right on the beach, tons of bars, an entertainment hall, and lots of group excursions. We had a whole week there, so we had lots planned. The first couple of days, we just relaxed around the resort, making the most of the unlimited drinks. The area around the resort was mostly jungle and scenic roads, so on the third day, we took a private shuttle to the nearest car rental place. The shuttle driver gave us a warning, don't stray too far from the coast, as there were a lot of unsafe areas. We rented a Ford Fiesta, no Mustangs or Camaros at this rental place. The car rental was in a small city about 5 miles up the road from the resort. Basically, there was this one long road that ran along a bunch of resorts, and next to it were miles of jungle and a few small towns. We drove south until we reached Tulum. The actual city of Tulum was less impressive than I'd imagined, especially since so many of my friends always talked about wanting to go there. We drove through Tulum and then back north. We found a dirt road leading into a jungle area and decided to just drive through it and see where it went. On both sides of us, it was just jungle, probably for miles. We drove down this wide dirt road, enjoying the scenery and a little bit of off-roading. Claire, though, thought we shouldn't be on a dirt road like this in a rental car, worried about getting it dirty. I agreed, so we did a 3-point turn and started heading back towards the main road. Eventually, we were stopped by 3 men who walked out of the jungle onto the road. We both instinctively said, "Oh no," at the same time, knowing this could be trouble. I brought the car to a stop and lowered the window just a crack as one of the men came up and started speaking in Spanish. I said, "No hablo español," and things started to get a little tense. Another man came to Claire's window and knocked on it. I told her not to lower it. The guy at my window started saying, "Money, money," and I saw the third man, who was still in front of the car, start walking towards my window too. He pulled a knife out of his right pocket. I slammed my foot on the gas, and the car lurched forward. The 3 men were yelling and running after us, but obviously, they couldn't run faster than a car. Our hearts were pounding from that encounter. I didn't let up on the gas until we were off the dirt road. After that, we didn't really want to drive around anymore. We drove the car to the resort parking lot and left it there. We didn't want to return it yet, especially since the rentals there were so cheap anyway. The next day, after talking with some of the resort workers who recommended a beautiful nearby cenote, which is like a natural swimming hole in a cave, to check out, we drove the car to another similar-looking dirt path very close to the resort. We followed the workers' directions and drove all the way to the end of the dirt road, then parked when we saw a sign for the cenotes. We found it without issue, and surprisingly, we were the only ones there. We didn't see any other cars. We followed the signs down this beautiful, scenic pathway. It was a truly peaceful experience that, unfortunately, had to be ruined when we started feeling like we were being watched. I don't mean we had some sixth sense, I mean we literally heard rustling and footsteps from all around us in the jungle. I whispered to Claire, "Let's just keep walking." We kept following the signs, and out of nowhere, a man came up to us, once again speaking Spanish. I again responded, "No hablo español." He then tried to speak in English, and I understood him to be trying to tell us to come with him, that he'd lead us to the cenote. Claire and I looked at each other nervously, and we followed him. He was leading us a different way than we were originally going. It seemed like we weren't following the signs anymore. Claire tapped me on the shoulder and pointed at the man's back pocket. There was the handle of a large knife. I whispered to her to run and then pushed her to start running, following close behind. The man noticed and started running after us, but thank goodness, he was slow. We easily outran him. We made it back to the car, and at first, I thought he'd stop chasing us. But as soon as we got in the car, 3 more people emerged from the path we just came from and tried opening the car doors. They then started hitting the glass, trying to break the windows open. Before any of them could actually break the windows, we were already moving. Claire was crying. Honestly, I wanted to cry too. 2 days in a row of this. We officially hated this place. We brought the car back to the rental shop, and luckily, there weren't any dents or anything from being pounded on, just some dirt stains. We shuttled back to the resort from there and didn't leave the resort again until we left days later for the airport. We warned the resort staff about the attack so they could warn other guests. We haven't returned to Mexico since, and I'm honestly not sure if we ever will. Even in what was supposed to be a safer area near the resorts, 2 days in a row, we barely escaped being robbed and attacked.